evening. It's great to see you all tonight. Thanks for being here to see Jane. Before I get started, I want to acknowledge many, many people who have contributed to this event, most of all to Alex and Yang and the Athena crew for having a Science on Screen event, because it's really so important. It's such a great opportunity to discuss the connections between art and science and all the other disciplines as well. Thanks also to all the people who helped put together the exhibit downstairs, who helped talk about the exhibit downstairs, and who provided specimens and funding to make this all happen. So of course, the reason why we're all here today is because of Jane. Much of our initial understanding of chimp behavior was shaped by the work of Jane Goodall, and it's documented tonight in a beautiful film. And when I think about Jane, I think a lot about her attributes. I think about things about Jane that act to inspire people. And this is her, I think her signature, her curiosity about nature, her deep sense of purpose that she should be out there studying nature. As you'll see, her deep grit and determination to achieve her goals. Her realization that no one can achieve anything all by themselves, and it's really a spirit of collaboration that will spawn success. And coming back to that word, inspiration, her inspiration to do this work, but then the inspiration that she can generate in others to do more and be more than they thought that they could be. But on a personal note, I connect with a lot of her thoughts because of her contributions to our understanding of evolution, her tireless work in biodiversity conservation, and her commitment to education and outreach. And these are things that resonate deeply with me as well. So I hope that you'll indulge me for just a few minutes in reflecting and talking about things here at Ohio University that really inspire me about these three topics. So let's start with evolution. Now, as many of you may know, and some of you may not, Jane was initially sent to work at Gombe Stream in Tanzania to study chimpanzees by Louis Leakey, her boss. And Louis Leakey sensed that understanding great ape behavior would help to inform our understanding of human origins as well. In fact, after she made a remarkable discovery of chimp tool use and cabled him about it, he cabled back. I left out the stops that they do in telegrams. Now we must redefine tool, redefine man, or accept chimpanzees as human. And this really helps to define how we think about science. It's the new discoveries that cause us to rethink things and really decide how we're going to move forward. I think that Jane would probably pick the last of those options. But it's important in this context also to realize that chimps are alive today. They're roaming the planet and the forests of Africa today. But the earliest apes, and indeed the earliest members of the lineage that contains both apes and humans, appeared on this planet around 25 million years ago. And we're only beginning to understand them. But fortunately, people here at Ohio University have discovered and described the oldest material of great apes and old world monkeys, and we're really beginning to delve into some of the things that characterize that group of primates. So I'd like to zoom in on a little part of Africa in the East African Rift called the Rukwa Rift Basin. Many of the people in this room have been to the Rukwa Rift Basin, and a lot of you have already heard about it, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it. But it's a beautiful space on the planet where the Earth's plates are moving apart from one another at about the same rate that our fingernails grow. Not all at once, in fits and starts with earthquakes and all kinds of tumultuousness, but it's because of this rift that we have the fossils that can elucidate the evolutionary history of the African continent, and indeed of the group to which we belong. And so I'd like to take you to the Rukwa Rift Basin Project, which is international, interdisciplinary project that's been running for the past 16 summers. And some of us have spent the past 16 summers hiking and exploring and sitting and breaking rocks and finding the earliest remnants of creatures that lived in different intervals throughout evolutionary history. And the one we'll talk about today is at 25 million years ago. And from that interval, from which we had 0 fossils of that age from the African continent, we have all of these different taxa now, all of these scientific names, brand new species to science. But you probably don't want to hear about all of those. And anyways, a picture is worth 1,000 words, or maybe more, if it's a picture that's rendered by the famous scientific illustrator Mauricio Anton. And so Mauricio worked with us for over 6 years to develop this window into 25 million years ago in a place that I love in Eastern Africa. And every species that you see here, I'll try to point to them, whether it's the apes, the monkeys, the other primates, all of the mammals, the oldest evidence of venomous snakes on the African continent, all kinds of creatures, including a bobcat-sized small meat-eating mammal that we named earlier this year. All of those are new to science because of the work that people at Ohio University and our colleagues have done over the past 16 years. So let's move on to the topic of conservation. And here, it's important to set some context. Now, many of you who are down at the exhibit tables below may have already seen this, and many of you may be aware of it as well. But presently, there are thought to be fewer than 300,000 chimpanzees remaining on the entire African continent. Now, 300,000 of individuals sounds like quite a lot, but if we compare it with, for example, the population of Columbus, we see that there are over twice as many people living in Columbus than our highest estimate of chimpanzee primates in the world. Of course, some of those estimates are even half that, but this is the most generous estimate. And the declines that we've been seeing in chimpanzee populations are greater in some areas than others. For example, a decrease in up to 90% of chimpanzees over the past 20 years in the Ivory Coast. So this is something that we really should be thinking about, we should be concerned about. Some of our closest relatives on the planet are in trouble. So researchers at Ohio University are exploring how chimpanzees are impacted by human activities. And we have some experience in thinking about these questions because we're also interested in human impacts on eastern mountain gorillas that live in some of the high-altitude forests of Uganda. Switching to gorillas for just a moment, there are approximately 880 eastern mountain gorillas left on the planet. So if we think about that, if they were people, they'd fill up this theater 4 times. That's it, on the entire planet. Of those 880 remaining eastern mountain gorillas, nearly half are habituated for ecotourism, and they have regular visits by humans almost every day throughout the year. And this is important to recognize because this close contact has the potential to influence health and behavior in both humans and gorillas. So in January, Ohio University signed a memorandum of understanding with an organization called Conservation Through Public Health in Uganda. And this organization is working tirelessly on the ground to explore how ecotourism dollars can be used to improve human health outcomes, education, sustainable livelihoods, and ultimately coexistence with biodiversity. Through this collaboration, we have plenty of opportunities for additional students to explore the human-wildlife interface. And they're doing a lot. Our students at Ohio University are doing a lot to look at these issues. So for example, one of our recent graduates, Annalisa Weber, did a project where she examined rule adherence in the ecotourism encounters of mountain gorillas. She basically wanted to understand what was happening during ecotourism encounters and how that might be impacting the gorillas. And so what she explored was this thing called the 7-meter distance rule. So the rule is when you go out and trek gorillas out in the wild, you're supposed to maintain a safe distance, not only for your physical safety because they're huge, but they're usually pretty docile and people aren't too afraid of them. But they can catch the same types of bugs, upper respiratory diseases that a lot of people come in from the plane carrying. And they can get sick also from the types of GI bugs that humans get. And so a lot of people have done research to explore how close is too close for humans and great apes. And they've arrived at this number of 7 meters. So what Annalisa sought to do is to go out and explore how well this rule was being adhered to. And unfortunately, she did 52 treks, and in 51 of those treks, there was a large encroachment on the distance, the 7-meter distance. And so working with this organization, Conservation Through Public Health, Annalisa was able to apply these results and help to inform policy decisions about how ecotourism encounters were conducted in this particular forest in Uganda, which is a really significant result for a master's student at Ohio University. Another one of our graduates, Jeremy Fahn, is a primate keeper at the Cincinnati Zoo, and he recently filmed this video of bonobos playing. And of course, play is essential for the development of great apes, just as it is for human children. So much so that people related to it, and this video went viral, and everyone was very interested in it. But Jeremy's not playing around when it comes to conservation. During his graduate work, he participated in the first captive reintroduction of endangered leaf monkeys in Vietnam. That's where he conducted his research. And he was recently awarded a grant from the Cincinnati Zoo to do captive reintroductions of slow lorises and pygmy lorises in Vietnam. So again, Ohio University students having tremendous impact on biodiversity conservation outcomes. And we'd be remiss if we didn't mention some other projects like Carrie Whitman's project, exploring food security on the edge of biodiversity hotspots, making sure that people have enough rice to eat, but that the forest can remain as well. We have many other students that are exploring human-wildlife conflict in Madagascar and other places. 2 students are looking at human-wildlife conflict related to some of the endemic carnivores on the island of Madagascar. And we also have faculty and students working together to try to develop public-private partnerships to preserve biodiversity in places around the globe. Now, of course, each one of these students works with a lot of faculty and a lot of people in different places in order to be able to conduct this work. Again, transdisciplinary collaboration is at the heart of all of this exploration and problem solving and real-world work. And here are just a few examples of some of these individuals doing their intrepid projects. So let's move on to the concept of education and outreach. And this is where I think it's really interesting to explore connections between art and science. These connections are around us everywhere. They're in the movie tonight. They're on the walls. They're in the museums. And so we ask ourselves, how does art inspire science? And how does science inspire art? You can see for yourself in the movie this evening, but I just want to tell you on a personal note, different ways that artists and scientists interact in my lab. So this is the type specimen of the oldest ape, Bruchopithecus, and using technology, micro-CT scanning, we're able to digitally dissect and reconstruct the morphology, the shape of the teeth of this animal. So even as you can see, though it was almost like a teenager, its wisdom tooth was still coming in, we're able to take a look at that using a micro-CT, remove it, and study the shape. And in some ways that can contribute to our understanding of this animal's biology. And I've already shown you the scientific illustration that Mauricio Anton has put together, which I think speaks to people much better than any list of new species ever could. That's just one example of all of the different types of collaborations between art and science, politics and engineering, and so many other fields that happen here on campus every single day. And to capture and capitalize on that kind of energy, it's really important that we gather people together, and so we have. And there's a group of people now working together on the Ohio University Museum Complex. This is transdisciplinary. It explores research, educational opportunities, and many chances for outreach in Ohio, its communities, and across the globe. I want to point out that in addition to tonight's movie, we also have a couple of really great speakers coming in the very near future. Pulitzer Prize-winning Elizabeth Colbert will be presenting her work on the 6th extinction. That will happen in the Templeton Blackburn Alumni Memorial Auditorium on April 3rd. Author Andrea Wolf will be presenting in the Ohio Center for Ecology and Evolutionary Studies Darwin Lecture this year. That will be on April 10th in the Baker Center Ballroom at 3:30 p.m. I encourage you to attend both of these events because they touch upon a lot of the topics that we'll be seeing tonight in the film Jane. So let's watch the film.